Hey everyone, welcome back. You guys sent in some really interesting stuff on U.S.-Israel relations.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, specifically about some recent arms deals that Trump approved.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what really stood out to me? There's this YouTube video from, it's called Al-Mukbir al-Iqtisadi,
Okay.
which translates to the economic informant. And it's this Arabic-speaking channel that, offers a perspective that we don't always get to hear here in the West.
Right.
So let's break this down together, okay? Like, what's really going on with these arms deals?
Yeah.
What does it mean for the region, for the world even?
Well, it does. Fascinating. The host, Ashraf Ibrahim, he really focuses on, the surge in these approvals. And it happened right after Netanyahu visited Washington.
Yeah, the timing is interesting for sure.
Very interesting. Makes you think.
Totally. And one of the things that Ibrahim really highlights is Israel's quest for the MOAB.
Oh, wow.
The mother of all bombs.
Yeah.
It's this massive weapon, like over 30 feet long,
Oh, my gosh.
packing the punch of 11 tons of TNT.
Wow. Can you imagine?
That's incredible.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's a huge weapon. It makes you think, like, why now? The video, it points out that previous administrations, they were hesitant to sell it to Israel because they were concerned about, well, basically Israel may be launching an attack,
Yeah.
a preemptive strike on Iran.
Without U.S. approval.
Exactly.
And so now with Trump, it's a green light. Especially interesting when you think about everything he said about, touristic reconstruction for Gaza.
Yeah.
It feels like it's all kind of connected. But okay, let's back up for a second.
Okay.
Because for those who don't know, a preemptive strike is basically a military attack
Right.
that's launched, well, to prevent an attack from the other side.
Yeah. High stakes for
Yeah.
sure. That's what makes this whole MOA thing so interesting. It seems like, well, maybe the U.S. is changing its stance a little. Maybe they're more willing to let Israel take the lead.
Right.
Even in these situations that could be really unstable. Okay, so the MOAB is definitely grabbing headlines. But it's not the only thing on this list.
Oh, right.
The video actually breaks down the specific arms deals,
Okay.
and it's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So first there's the initial deal for $1 billion, which includes thousands of bombs
Wow.
and a bunch of Caterpillar D9 bulldozers.
Those bulldozers. They're powerful machines. But, well, they've been used a lot to demolish Palestinian homes, unfortunately. It's a pretty symbolic part of this whole thing.
Yeah, it adds a whole other layer to it for sure. But wait, there's more.
Oh.
So 2 more deals were approved after Netanyahu's visit, totaling, get this, $7.4 billion.
Wow.
We're talking GBU-39B small diameter bombs, MK-82 bombs, Hellfire missiles,
Oh, wow.
all kinds of stuff.
So each of these systems has a different role to play, right? Like the GBU-39B,
Yeah.
that's all about pinpoint accuracy, whereas the MK-82, it's more like a general purpose mode. That you see a lot in airstrikes. And then you've got the Hellfire missiles. Those are primarily for taking out tanks and other armored vehicles, so it's a pretty diverse arsenal.
And here's the thing. These weapons are being funded by U.S. aid to Israel.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money,
It's LS.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, like, what are the implications of all that?
Right.
That's a big question because U.S. aid to Israel, well, it has a very complicated history.
Yeah.
And this it raises so many questions about how that money's being used, what it means for the balance of power in the region.
Yeah, it's complicated. And then you've got Trump advocating for reduced global defense spending on one hand,
Right?
and then approving these massive arms deals on the other.
Right. He even said, and I quote, "Building weapons and bombs that will never be used is insane."
Talk about a contradiction.
Makes you think, right? Maybe he's putting America's interests first. Even if it means, breaking some campaign promises. Or maybe there's some kind of strategy we don't know about. Whatever the reason is, it's obvious that these sales are, they're a huge part of understanding U.S. foreign policy in the region.
It's definitely a lot more complicated than it seems on the surface.
Oh, yeah.
So what does this all mean for the bigger picture?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. To understand what these arms deals really mean, we need to zoom out, look at, the whole geopolitical landscape. Think about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict,
Right.
the tensions with Iran in the region, and just the overall struggle for power in the Middle East.
Yeah, it's a lot. We're talking about a whole web of interconnected issues.
Definitely.
This is going to be a fascinating deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tangled web. And like you said, these arms deals are just one thread. It's easy to get lost in all the numbers and, the tech stuff.
Right.
But what I keep thinking about is the people. We're talking about weapons. That could really hurt a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the big picture, but it's important to remember that real people will be affected by these decisions. That's where the video from Ashraf Ibrahim, that's where it really hits home. He's
Yeah.
giving a voice to the people who don't always get heard in these conversations.
While I was reading through everything you sent me,
Yeah.
I came across a statistic that really stopped me in my tracks.
Mm-hmm.
According to the UN, over 2,200 Palestinians in Gaza, they were killed during the 2014 conflict.
Right.
And most of them were civilians.
Yeah, it just shows you the human cost of conflict. It's a good reminder that we should always try to find peaceful solutions whenever we can.
Absolutely.
Right.
But going back to the arms deals, I'm still trying to figure out why Trump would approve them while also, calling for less military spending.
Yeah.
It just seems like he's sending mixed messages.
It does seem that way, doesn't it? I mean, on the one hand, you have the whole America First thing,
Right.
focusing on not getting involved in other countries' problems.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, he's approving all these weapons to a key ally in a region that's not exactly stable.
So how do you explain that, those two positions?
Well, maybe he sees these sales as a way to get what America wants in the region without having to send troops. It's a way to show power and influence without actually getting directly involved, militarily, I mean.
So it's like saying, we're supporting you, but you're on your own when it comes to using these weapons.
Exactly. And that brings up a whole bunch of questions about, well, who's responsible? And what might happen if those weapons are used?
It's complicated.
Yeah.
For sure. But let's talk about the money for a second.
Okay.
We mentioned earlier that these arms deals are being paid for with U.S. aid to Israel.
Right.
Can you give us some background on that? Like, what exactly is U.S. aid to Israel? How does it work?
Sure. Basically, the U.S. has been giving aid to Israel since it was founded in 1948.
Okay.
It started as mostly economic assistance, but over time, it's changed to include a lot of military aid. In fact, Israel is the biggest recipient of U.S. military financing right now.
Wow. I had no idea it was that much.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's often a big part of the debate about U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. Some people say it's essential for keeping Israel safe and for maintaining stability in the region.
And I guess others would say that it actually makes the conflict worse.
Yeah.
And that it creates an imbalance of power.
Exactly. They say that the aid lets Israel have a stronger military than its neighbors, and that makes it less likely that Israel will be willing to make compromises in peace talks.
So this aid program is kind of a double-edged sword then.
Kind of, yeah. The goal is to create stability, but it could actually be making the tension worse.
It's definitely complicated.
Oh, it is. And it's important to understand the history and all the different points of view.
This deep dive is really making us think. We've got all the political stuff, the money, the moral questions. Where does it all leave us? What's the takeaway for our listeners?
Well, one thing is for sure. There are no easy answers when it comes to the Middle East. It's a place with a long and troubled past. And what's happening now is the result of years and years of complex relationships between different groups.
So there's no simple solution.
Unfortunately, no. But I do think it's important to keep learning about what's going on, to educate ourselves, and to think about the different sides of the story.
And to remember the human cost.
Absolutely, because in the end, these decisions have a real impact on people's lives. We can't forget that.
Yeah, it really makes you think. When we started this deep dive, I was really focused on the weapons themselves, the MOAB, on the bombs, the missiles. But it's become pretty clear that there's a much bigger story here.
It really is. We're talking about power struggles, historical conflicts, and just the fight for peace and security in a region that has seen so much conflict for generations, really.
And like you said, it's about people's lives. At the end of that video, Ashraf Ibrahim, he makes this really powerful statement. He's basically telling people in the U.S. to contact their senators and representatives to try to stop these arms deals. He's saying, don't let your government make this conflict worse.
It's a good reminder that we're not just watching this happen. We can speak up. We can try to do something about it.
So what can we do? It's easy to feel overwhelmed by how complicated this all is.
It is complicated, but that doesn't mean we should just give up. The first thing we can do is learn more about the issues, like we're doing now.
Yeah.
And then we can talk to other people, share what we've learned, and even challenge our own assumptions.
One thing I've noticed during this deep dive is how easy it is to just see things in black and white.
Right.
Good guys versus bad guys.
Yeah.
But it's so much more nuanced than that.
Yeah. It really is. There are so many different sides to the story, so many perspectives, and we need to be open to hearing them all. Doesn't mean we have to agree with everything, but we need to try to understand where everyone is coming from.
It's about empathy.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
Trying to see the world the way they see it.
Exactly. And that's so important when we're talking about something like this, a conflict that has caused so much pain on all sides.
So where do we go from here? What's the next step?
Just keep asking questions. Keep digging deeper. Keep challenging ourselves to really think about the world.
And remember that even small things can make a difference. Like talking to our friends and family about this stuff. Supporting organizations that are working for peace. Contacting our elected officials.
Yeah, every voice matters. And together we can make the world a better place.
Yeah.
A more peaceful place.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling, well, a lot of things right now. Informed, definitely. Challenged, too. And maybe even a little bit hopeful.
Me too. It's been a really interesting conversation. I think we both learned a lot.
I know I have. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new, too, and that it gave you some things to think about. But the conversation doesn't stop here. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep trying to make the world a better place. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.